Is the fig tree generation for real? The reason for this video is to respond to a comment made under one of my earlier videos, that the Bible doesn't mention a fig tree generation. There is a fig tree parable and there is a generation that Jesus said would not pass away, but Jesus was referring to the generation that saw the destruction of the temple. I replied to that comment, but I thought it would be a good thing to make a video about the fig tree generation theory, which originated from the parallel verses in Mark 13 and Matthew 24, which form a small part of the Olivet discourse which Jesus went into to answer questions from his disciples about when his coming and the end of the age would be. You can see these verses in the background of the video. I have also displayed some verses from Judges chapter 9. The story behind this is about an evil king of Israel, Abimelech, who killed all 70 of his half-brothers except for one survivor, Jotham, who then prophesied against Abimelech by telling a story which spoke of various trees, one of them being the fig tree, which were asked by the other trees to rule over them, but only the bramble agreed. In the prophecy, fire comes from the bramble and destroys the cedars of Lebanon, symbolizing the civil war that would ensue, where eventually Abimelech is removed, but not before killing a lot of people who tried to depose him. What I take from this story is the idea that a tree can symbolize a king and a kingdom in Bible prophecy. What is interesting is that there is a reference to fruit, which is exactly what Jesus referred to in his parable of the barren fig tree in Luke 13 verses 6 to 9. You could almost say that the kingdom of Jesus is the kingdom of the fig tree. When Jesus was on earth last time, there were people who actually wanted to crown Jesus as king at a certain time, but he knew it was not the right time. First, he needed to see fruit of repentance, a change of heart to accept the sweet gospel of grace, symbolized by the sweet fruit of the fig tree. By repentance, Jesus meant that he wanted people to change their ways and submit to his authority, but the nation as a whole was not willing. In Luke 13, Jesus spoke of two incidents where certain people were killed because of their rebellion against the Romans, but Jesus hinted that in reality all of Israel was in rebellion not against the Romans, but against the repentance that Jesus taught. Jesus did not teach a rebellion against the Romans, but instead taught that if a Roman soldier asked you to carry his stuff for 1 mile, you should instead carry it 2 miles. In the end, the rebelliousness of the Jews against the Romans caused the entire city of Jerusalem and the temple to be destroyed in AD 70. This was not about the Romans, by the way. The Romans were happy for the Jews to live in peace within their empire and to practice their religion, but God would not allow the Jews to continue and have their own rebellious kingdom after they rejected Jesus as king, and in the end God used the Romans to destroy the entire kingdom of Israel and force the nation of Israel into exile for almost 1,900 years, after which the Jews returned to their land and formed a new nation of Israel in 1948. That brings us to the parallel passages in Mark 13 verses 28 to 30 and Matthew 24 verses 32 to 34. Both passages refer to a generation which will not pass away until all these things take place. The fig tree is given as a metaphor that we can tell from what is happening on that tree what season we are in. There is also a subtle hint that perhaps the beginning of the tribulation will happen in the period preceding summer, and this is hinted at in Mark 13 verse 18, "Pray that your flight may not be in winter." That would certainly be the case if the tribulation began on May 14th, which is late spring, early summer in Israel. At the end of the day though, I cannot be entirely sure that the tribulation will begin in May 2022. I will however say that even if we leave out the fig tree reference, we are still left with a generation which will not pass away until all these things take place. Clearly, Jesus was not referring to the events of AD 70, as he goes on to say, in Mark 13 verses 24 to 26, that after that tribulation, the Son of Man will come in the clouds with great power and glory. This did not happen in AD 70. So we can only assume the tribulation Jesus referred to is still in the future. There are some who say the Great Tribulation Jesus referred to is the second half of the 7-year tribulation. If so, then we are already in the first half of the tribulation. That is a problem because the rapture seems to be linked with that mid-tribulation point in Revelation 12:5-6. Whatever the case, I can only follow Jesus' instruction to keep watching, because whatever happens, we will find out in about 5 months whether this theory is true or not. As always, please comment, like and subscribe, and see you on the other side if the Lord doesn't tarry.